Trump's executive order signed back in August 7th, allowing alternative assets in 401ks, is a really big deal. And now is the time to get prepared for it. What's up, working people? It's the Working Man Money Mark, sharing my 2 cents, and hopefully it makes sense. So, anyone that knows me knows that I love talking about building wealth. This is right up my alley. So, this bill is going to allow middle class Americans not just become millionaires, but for the most savvy investors out there, multimillionaires, just in their 401ks. This does not include anything else that you have going on outside of that. Now, most of you who have 401ks know, especially if you're into investing and you've put in the time and put in the research, you know that you're very limited in the options that you have as an investor. And this is something that I've written into my local union that administers my plan. And let's just face the facts, guys. The 60-40 portfolio is dead. Bonds have gotten absolutely wrecked in the last decade. And truthfully speaking, I really don't even have them in my portfolio. And just personally, and I'm not saying this to brag, I've done well over 10% in my portfolio over the last 5 years, actually longer than that. So it is possible to do this, right? You're going to have down years, of course. Nothing goes up in a straight line. And it's going to take time to learn all these things. But the reason I'm making this video is because now is the time to start educating yourself on these alternative assets. Because this is what I believe. Not only, all right, so let me go back a little bit. I work in the construction industry, as you guys already know. You see the hard hat behind me over there. And I've been able to become an accredited investor. And I've expressed this on this channel. This is a passion of mine to help younger blue collar workers in particular develop their mindset to help them achieve financial freedom and create multiple streams of income. And by the way, if you're interested in coaching, go to the channel page, shoot me an email, or you can set up an appointment through any of those links. But in my industry, there's always like this rumor, like, oh, this guy has 2 million in his 401k. This guy has $3 million in his 401k. Now, I know what the average 401k numbers are out there. And honestly, if your 401k is all you have and you fall into that category where you only have 100,000, 200,000 in your 401k and that's all you got in retirement, you gotta start hustling. You gotta start learning this stuff. Even if you're an older American, it's never too late. There are things that you can do always. And, a lot of investing is just putting in the time into your education, getting the books, taking the courses, going to the conferences. You just got to put in the work. It's the same thing with fitness and everything else in your life. Now, the reason I say that education is really important right now is because it's going to take at least a year or two before the SEC, the administration, and everyone that's involved in this bill irons out exactly what those criteria are going to be. Now, what I was saying about the guys in my business, some of these individuals that have been able to work steady, because construction is a very cyclical industry. Some of the guys that have been able to work steady for a long period of time, having $2 million plus in their 401k, that is not uncommon. And the reason I'm saying this is because this new bill, I believe, is going to have people that have 30-year careers. They're going to have more than $5 million in their 401ks. I'm talking about the guys, the men and women that are actually educated and really, really smart with investing. They're going to be able to create tremendous wealth, because let's talk about what those alternative assets actually are. One of the alternative assets is real estate. Another is um, digital products, as they say. So that's crypto and private equity. Now I'm going to leave private equity for last, but there are already options to invest in real estate, like through a self-directed IRA. But that's a different situation. You're able to build a lot more wealth more quickly in your 401k because it's a pre-tax account. And if you have an employer that matches your contribution, um, you can have a tremendous amount of money there in a decade. And if you're able to invest in real estate, let's say a single family home or a couple of multifamily homes, I mean, that is a tremendous opportunity because right now, and I teach, other people how to do this. You can borrow. I think the rule is you can borrow about $50,000 for a general purpose loan out of your 401k. Now, I've done this for myself, where I borrowed money from my 401k to buy other assets, and I've done this for well over a decade. I've done pretty well with that, and that's just one lane, but that's only $50,000. And once you borrow that money, you have to wait another year until you can get that other $50,000 back out to invest. So this is a tremendous opportunity. Now, in most 401ks, there are only a certain number of index funds, right? You have a small cap. You may have a few choices on each, but you basically have a small cap, mid cap, large cap. You have some bond funds. You may have a couple of REIT funds. But one of my frustrations in our plan is that we don't have a precious metals fund, right? We don't have a crypto fund. And considering that bonds are essentially giving no return lately, and I mean, like, over the last 5 to 10 years, you need these alternative assets, right? To have a truly diversified portfolio. Now, a lot of people would argue, well, if you're not that sophisticated, maybe you should go into one of the target funds. Yeah, that's true, but I'm not a Wall Street trader or anything like that. I'm a regular blue collar guy that's put in a lot of time into his education, and I've beat all the index funds in my plan. So you can do this, okay? But now is the time to start educating yourself. Start educating yourself on real estate, okay? Learn the real estate investing math, right? Net operating income, cash on cash return. These are things that you should know. As far as crypto, learn about the different crypto products. Now, you have to be very careful with this stuff, right? But learn the basics if you're not even familiar with that. Learn about Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana. Learn about the top five based on trading volume, what they do, what their use is, right? Now let's talk about the private equity thing. Now this is where, so getting back to those other alternative assets, I think that this is going to be a tremendous opportunity for middle class Americans that understand, have a decent amount of information on investing. But I also believe that this is going to create hyper bubbles. So we have to be very, very careful about this stuff. And one of the areas that I think people may get wrecked in is private equity. They're allowing private equity also into these 401k plans. And I would warn you that that should be the last thing that you invest in your 401k plan if you are not an accredited investor. And what I mean is that, you can look up what the definition of accredited investor is. I believe it's if you're making more than $250,000 in income and you have more than $1 million in assets, not including your primary residence. Now, personally, I don't think that those criteria are stringent enough. I don't think that makes you a savvy investor per se, but when I say an experienced investor, I mean that you've been doing it for more than 5 to 10 years in a few different asset classes, right? And you've gone through, personally, I would say even a decade, that you've gone through some turbulent market cycles, because a lot of investing is just staying the course and being able to spot opportunities. And, you know, most people that say they're investors, I mean, if they get hit hard in a market crash, and you drop more than 50% or something like that, or you've had a couple of investments that have gone down to essentially zero, because that's what's going to happen, right? I mean, as you increase in your investing, um, your opportunities, you're not going to win. You're just not going to win on every deal. That's just the way it is, but this is a cumulative effect over time, and that determines your track record, right? So the private equity thing in particular is, like, so if you're not familiar with private equity, usually the baseline is they charge a 2% annual fee plus 20% of the profit on that product. Now, private equity, in general, have tremendous returns. I mean, I'm 20+%, right? And so even with that 2% fee and 20% of the profits, I mean, if you have if you choose wisely, and you have a 25 plus percent return, I mean, you can do very, very well, right? But again, that should be the last thing that you consider. So just to wrap this thing up, I'm going to say this. Now is the time to start educating yourself. Put the time in, learn what this bill is offering to us. And especially if you're in your 20s, now's the time, especially, to start learning about how the fees, in particular in a 401k, impact you, because that is going to be the biggest detriment towards your growth. And especially if you're going to borrow against your 401k, be smart, right? Use it to buy financial assets that over the long term are going to ultimately bring in way higher returns than what it took you to borrow that money from your plan to begin with, right? And if you're doing all of these things, then in a year or two from now, you're going to be in a great position, especially if you've accumulated some money. You're going to be in a great position to double, triple, quadruple that money over 20 to 30 years. And I don't think it's going to be uncommon at all, if this bill stays, and if in fact all the things that are mentioned in this bill actually are available to us. I mean, it's not going to be uncommon, for people to have $5 million plus in their 401k after they leave their career. And, I always say the millionaire of yesterday. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, it was like lifestyles of the rich and famous. Like, to be a millionaire was a big deal, but adjusted for inflation, I say, like, the millionaire of yesterday is the 3 to 5 millionaire of today. So you're going to have to figure out, how to multiply your wealth. So anyway, lastly, if that was valuable to you, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you want more of this stuff. And, also, if you're interested in coaching, go to the channel page, shoot me an email. I'd love to talk with you. Again, this is something that I really enjoy doing, helping blue collar workers, middle class Americans, create financial freedom and multiple streams of income. Lastly, the wise working man is anyone that's on the path towards financial freedom while simultaneously becoming the greatest version of themselves. Take care, everybody.